Gaza Strip. The world's largest prison. Welcome to Geopolitics Today, your reliable source for a deeper understanding of our ever-changing world. Take a look at this video.
يعني على اساس انه ما هد الدار يعني رح نخاف كثير واو يعني هد الدار رح نخاف كثير رح نخاف رح ينقلع. اول ما اجينا من المدرسه لقينا الجرافات باب الدار قاعدين بيهدوها ولقينا كل الناس على باب الدار. غرفتي ولا عيبي وراح معي وراح خزينتي راح تختي. بس رايحين نطلع من القدس لأنه هم قوات احتلال عمالهم بيطلعونا من دارنا وعمالهم بيطلعونا من القدس عمالهم بيطلعونا من فلسطين نروح بس نبص رجلهم. لا والله فشلت عينهم كمان.
Did you watch the video? My intention with this video was to shock and make you start questioning, not just accepting what's spoon-fed by traditional media, which often only looks at one side. My goal here is to provide a didactic overview of what's happening between Palestinians and Israelis, so you can start thinking outside the box and questioning what traditional media presents to us. The first point to understand all of this is to go back in history. The Palestine represented in this image was ruled by various peoples, but my focus here is on the dominance of the Ottoman Turkish Empire. They ruled this region, where Muslims, Jews, and Christians lived in Palestine. Okay, but someone might say, the Bible says that this land is sacred for the Israelis. First point, in the Bible itself, when it talks about Jesus Christ, it refers to him as a Palestinian, not an Israeli. But my discussion here is not about faith, and certainly not about religions. I'm bringing up a debate based on history and facts. So, with the end of the Ottoman Turkish Empire in 1922, England came to rule this region. It ruled an area where Muslims, Jews, and Christians lived harmoniously. But we had a movement led by someone who said, look, we need to return to the Holy Land. Alright, but where were these Jews living? Scattered around the world, mainly in Europe. It's the Zionist movement. England didn't know what to do with this region, as it wasn't rich in oil like other Middle Eastern areas. They said, let's sell some land to these Jews who want to return to the sacred land. So, Jews began to occupy this area, living in harmony with Muslims and Christians. But here's an important point in all of this: World War II. Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany persecuted Jews living in Europe. We had the Holocaust, a sad mark in our contemporary history. With the end of World War II, major powers, especially the United States and England, said, we need to give these Jews a country. They can't continue living in Europe. So they decided, in 1948, to create the State of Israel, as many Jews had arrived in this region during the Second World War. During World War II, these Jews were also returning here. So, they decided to create the State of Israel. They voted on it at the United Nations, and the UN, everyone knows, is essentially the United States. Whatever the United States decides, the UN obeys because the UN is the United States. And folks, what did we have at the end of World War II? Bipolarity. The United States controlled a large part of the world and did whatever it wanted. So, the decision was made, the creation of the State of Israel. The creation of the State of Israel was intended to create, in reality, two countries. So, you had to create Israel and the State of Palestine. But, in reality, they created a state within a state. Didactically, that's what happened, they created a state within a state. Notice here that a large part of the Palestinian population lived in a considerably large area, both in what we call the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, at the time of the creation of the State of Israel. Okay, didn't Arab Muslims accept the creation of the State of Israel? Then we have the Six-Day War in 1967. From there, history starts to change because Israel begins to expand its territory into these areas, which were occupied by Palestinians. Oh. So you mean that after creating the State of Israel, they also created the State of Palestine? No. This area is considered an occupied territory only. So, Israel began to expand its territory and didn't stop. It started to pressure and shrink both the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Did the West Bank experience this Israeli interference? Yes. Just to give you an idea, these areas here, they are all surrounded. And the Israelis divided the West Bank into 3 parts. Area C, which is occupied by the Israelis, includes riverhead areas, rivers, arable lands, and beautiful landscapes. Israelis live there. Area B, where Palestinians can go with permission. And Area A, where there is actual Palestinian occupation with the Palestinian government. So, the West Bank also faces this interference from Israel. Regarding the Gaza Strip, it faces a blockade. It's all blocked. It's all surrounded, both by land and sea. Okay, since when has it been blocked? Since 2007. Because before 2007, there was a certain degree of freedom there, checkpoints, and Jewish settlements very close to the Gaza Strip. But in 2007, you had the rise of Hamas to power, and everything changed. Israel surrounded the Gaza Strip. From then on, the Gaza Strip became the largest prison in the world. That's right. The Gaza Strip today has a total area of 365 square kilometers, and approximately 2 million people live there. It has a high population density. Since 2007, Palestinians have only had electricity for 4 hours a day. Palestinians don't have access to clean water since a large part of the water has been contaminated by Israelis, and they control the distribution of water. There's no fuel, as fuel also came from Israel. They are restricted from the most basic rights needed for survival. Just to give you an idea, 60% of the population living in the Gaza Strip lives in extreme poverty. 80% of the population is unemployed, and almost all of them rely on donations. Donations that Hamas provides since it receives support from Syria, Qatar, and Iran. So, Hamas receives these donations and distributes them to the population, otherwise, the Gaza Strip's population would have already been decimated. And the hospitals? Many hospitals in the Gaza Strip were directly or indirectly bombed by Israelis. So, if you have a chronic health problem, you need permission from Israel to receive treatment in the state of Israel. And this authorization isn't always granted. Just to give you an idea, a large part of the population living in the Gaza Strip are young, and these young people didn't experience those initial wars. They are in a different social context. They didn't participate in the 6-Day War, they didn't participate in the Yom Kippur War. Because the population of that time no longer exists. Today's population is made up of young people who suffer from Israeli interference. Nothing justifies what Hamas did against ordinary citizens. But you need to understand that there's no good guy. Israel is not the good guy, just as Hamas is not the good guy. There's no good guy and bad guy. So, what should we do? Give Palestinians a state and not segregate them into the worst parts of Palestinian territory. They should be given arable lands, access to water, and a minimum of living conditions. That way, they wouldn't be as easily manipulated by Hamas in some cases, and they would have a country with the minimum they need to survive. But then the United States says what? No way. No way. China says what? Yes, Israel has rights. But Palestinians should also have their own state. And Jerusalem should be a global capital. Something like the UN occupation would be resolved. But the United States, which receives substantial investments from Jewish bankers, supports Israel, and Israel doesn't want Muslim presence there, they want Jerusalem in their hands, especially the Jewish extremists who put extremist governments in power, like the one currently governing Israel. So, notice that this conflict is a territorial one. It's not a religious conflict. Since before this Israeli occupation, people living in that region lived in harmony. The media wants to portray it as a religious conflict, claiming that Hamas and Palestinians are extremists. But no. In reality, they are competing for territory, arable land, and water for survival. So, what should be done? Equal distribution, not everything in Israel's hands. That way, everyone could live in peace, just as they did in Palestine in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. This conflict was stimulated by major powers who wanted to appease the Jews, who indeed suffered, and it was a sad event during World War II. But it shouldn't have been done this way, giving everything to some and nothing to others. And you see the result, it's very sad. So, when you take a stance on the internet, think as a Palestinian Muslim and think as an Israeli Jew. Remember that Muslims, Jews, and Christians also live in Israel. So, folks, let's think more, let's think outside the box. Let's think about the facts, looking at both sides of things, and find a middle ground. But now, we're curious to know. What do you think? What do you think of the presence of the State of Israel in this territory? Who should have the right? What is your opinion on Hamas's attack on Israel? Let us know in the comments, we want to hear your opinion. Thank you for spending this time with us. Be sure to like, subscribe, and activate the notification bell to stay updated on our upcoming videos and stay informed about the current geopolitical landscape. We've also handpicked these videos, which we recommend you watch next. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next video.